Welcome back, guys, to yet another World of Warcraft video on this channel. Today we are going to be talking about my crafting rotation and kind of like min-maxing on my alt army. So I'll be going over a bunch of different tips and tricks for what you can actually do to speed run your rotation if you want to lower the amount of time as much as possible. Now, this is the efficiency that works for me. I'll talk a little bit about what you might miss out on if you do some of it, and what you could also spend more time on to make some more gold and whatever it is. Like, there's a bunch of different reasons for why you could choose to do some of these, and it's all up to you to, kind of see what's worth it and how much time you want to spend on each thing. But before we do get into it, make sure that you guys drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel with all the notifications on so you won't miss a future video, and also make sure that you check out Gold Cap down in the comments below, in the pinned comment most likely, and also in the description, because there is an affiliate link for me, of course. Gold Cap is a great place to be if you're interested in learning more about gold making in any kind of version of WoW. That is the place that you can be. There's both the website or premium guides, but there's also the Discord that you can be a part of. And once you actually have just had a subscription to Gold Cap, you are on the Discord permanently. That's just a part of it, and it's a great place to be to talk about gold making and yap with all of us in the team. So again, if you're interested, make sure that you check that out. But let's get straight into it. So today I thought about making this video because a lot of people have been asking how I can keep the time down when I actually go through crafting. And to keep you guys updated on the alt army, I'm currently up to like 240 characters. The goal is 300, which I'm, getting closer and closer to, but it does take quite a while to set up each tune. But again, let's talk about it. So when you are logged into your character, this is not a perfectly set up character, but I can still show you what I would want to do. So the first thing that you obviously normally would do is that you log into your character. Now, the speed that you can increase this by is obviously, it's very simple, having WoW on an SSD, and then also the add-ons that you actually have being as low resources as possible, because the more add-ons that you actually have, the slower this is going to be. So on these alts, because I already know what I want to craft on these alts before I log into them, I don't need a bunch of different add-ons. And another thing that I do, and I'll show you right here, I have 3 different buttons. Now, one is a logout macro, and all that this does is it literally, I click it and then I log out. So instead of having to click escape and then log out, or whatever it is that you do, it's just a click on a button and you log out. Now, the 2 other icons that you saw right next to it, one was a mailbox and the other one was the warbank. Because, and here's the kicker, if you are currently crafting, let's say you open up your enchanting window and you make one of your enchants, you can pop the mailbox and the warbank in between, like while you're clicking here. So you can kind of min-max that even more and spend even less time. And then when you're done, you can just pop everything into your warbank. Now, the reason why that is so good is because you have your mailbox. So if you decide to say, hey, I want to do some of these patron orders, well, then you click everything out of the mailbox instantly, and that's an instant cast, right? So you don't have to worry about maybe mounting up if you have the store boy, and you don't have to worry about flying all the way over to the warbank because you already have access to it here. Now, the other thing that I do is I mass buy everything that I would ever need for any of these tunes, right? So if I'm crafting anything, right, you can see here I have thousands and thousands of all these materials. You might be like, okay, well, how do I know how much to buy? Well, generally, when I started my crafting process, I would always consider it with the way, like, with how much percentage I have in my stats. So because Ingenuity on brand new fresh tunes, if they don't get blue tools, they start at about 35% for me, because something that you can add onto these is you can add forged frameworks, which is another min-maxing. This increases your ingenuity. I would say these are worth it at rank 2 most of the time. The other thing that you can also get is going to be File of Concentrated Ingenuity. This will also increase your percentages, which is how I get the 35%. You can also, get blue tools eventually, and that will make that better if that's something that you want to work towards. The other thing that can also make your process better, it's not that much faster, but let's say that you get a lot of products, you get 10, 15 crafts or whatever, then this will make a difference. Having your crafting speed at a much higher rate is going to make it it's going to make a big difference if you have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 characters. So that's something that you absolutely need to look at. Now, the other thing that you can also work on if you don't currently have it is the severed threads, because one of the sub factions under the severed threads is the weaver. Now, you can get this particular buff, and it's across all of your toons. As long as you are in the war within zone, you will have this particular buff. Now, there is 9 levels to the Weaver, and at 5 out of 9, you get 15% profession and gathering speed, like crafting and gathering speed, and at 7 out of 9, you actually get 30%. So that's just a baseline buff, which is really awesome. Now, the only other thing is that you can see here without having any other buffs, we get to 35%, or 45%, I mean. So what we could do to max that out is we can get this aerated file of Corcans. This is a Dragon Isles, Dragonflight crafting speed file, and it works perfectly for everything that we need. If we pop this one, we get to 75%. Now, 75% is the max crafting speed, so you literally cannot be any faster than this. So that's exactly what you would want. Now, as I was talking about before, when you do invest into the materials, it's really easy for me to figure out what I need on the alt army, because on my entire alt army, the vast majority of it is going to be enchanting and tailoring. And the reason why I'm able to do so many enchanting and so many tailoring toons is because right now I'm mostly only using tailoring for the patron orders because of what they actually give, and then slow progression and getting artisan's acuity towards the fact that we can save up artisan's acuity either for profession tools on the toon, or we can save it up for the 600 artisan's acuity material bags that we can eventually use in season 2. So those are two kind of awesome things. If you don't like tailoring, you can obviously do something else, another profession, because there's a lot of good options out there. And then you have enchanting. Now, the thing about enchanting is that you have a lot of different options, okay, for decent, good enchants. And like the list that I have is pretty big in terms of how many different enchants that I'm doing. But again, the most important thing that you can do is diversify as much as possible. If you're only doing like 5 or 10 or maybe 15, 20 characters, you could realistically just do the same enchant and be fine. But when you get to the levels where I'm at, I need to spread out the amount of enchants that I do. Otherwise, I'll be stuck selling the same item for hours and hours and hours on end. Usually right now, it only takes me like a couple of hours, like 1 or 2 hours to sell all the stuff that I craft, because I'm spread out over 10 to 12 different enchants. And now, something important to remember when it comes to these enchants is that they will all have different profit margins. And when you look at something like that, you're like, oh, well, I want to craft the one that has the best profit margin. Well, here's the thing. If you only focus on that, you don't know whether or not the price on a rank 3 enchant will hold the entire time. So what might not be the highest profit margin when you look at a craft, right, at the start of the day, might be the highest potential profit when you actually end up being done with your crafting, depending on how long it takes for you to do that. But again, I already know what I craft on these alts, because when I set up one of these alts, as I'm doing right now, I have a particular enchant in mind. And that alt will do it no matter what, okay? As long as it's profit, I will be crafting it. And that's all it is. I don't worry too much about, using something like Craft Sim to go cost optimization or reagent optimization. You could do that, but that also increases the amount of time that you're actually spending on each alt, and I don't think that's worth it if we're talking about a quantity level and not really a quality. If you're only doing like 5 to 10 characters, I'd assume that that's probably worth it depending on what you want out of it. But for me, it's generally worth it just to full send to each alt, even if they are making a little bit less on each one. I make up for that by having, hundreds of alts. That's kind of where my thinking is. Now, the enchant that I'll be doing on this one is, for example, Radiant Mastery. So what I would do with that, since I'm not using any add-ons, is that either because I know exactly what enchant I'm doing, because usually it's an outlier with the way that I've set it up. But if you want to make it super easy for yourself, and this is very, very simple, all you have to do is you right-click it, right, when you have it learned, which I can't right now because I don't have it learned, but you can do a set favorite. At this point, you have your favorite right here. Then you just click on that and then you full send it. Another thing that's really important to remember, and this is something that I've seen a lot of people not really think about, is that when you get the supplementary shattering, okay, you get the shatter buff. I actually show you this on another one of my tunes just to give you an insight into what happens, because I've seen lots of people go on for weeks and weeks and weeks on end crafting and not realizing this. A lot of people, because we're in the way that we want to actually min-max the amount of time that we're spending on each alt, this is actually important, because if you have something like the file right here of concentrated ingenuity, or you have the aerated file of quick hands, you can get a lot of uses out of this, right? This is where it makes it useful, because this timer does not go down if you're not logged in. But you can also see the shattered essence, which is the buff you get right here for having supplementary shattering. You can see that this buff is supposed to give me 165 resourcefulness, 165 ingenuity, and 75 multi-crafting. Now, it did when I used this when I crafted the other day, but as you can see, I'll go over to one of my crafts here. This is currently at 23%. Now, if I remove this, and we'll just click around, you can see that is still at 23%. So you can see that that buff did absolutely nothing for me, even though it was still there, right? Now, if I pop this again, and I go back here, you can see, oh, it's at 27%. So what happens is actually when you log out, okay, when you log out with that particular buff, only Shatter Essence, I haven't seen that with anything else. When you log out having that buff, it kind of makes it not work for some reason. It's a bug that's existed for a while. Kind of sad they haven't fixed it, but it's something that you have to pay attention to specifically for enchanting. As you can see, we're back to it again. We'll go right over to our craft and see 23%. So every single time you're logged into an alt, you have to reapply Shattered Essence if you're doing enchanting in particular. Okay. And again, obviously for enchanting, that's super easy because it's just crystalline powder. It's mostly 1 gold or less. So that's actually not really going to be an issue for you because, you know, it's cheap. But again, something like that is what you want to look out for when you're doing these alts. Now, the other thing that I do is I try to min-max the amount of time that I'm actually doing my concentration. I've seen a lot of people log in every day because they want to be sure that they never waste any opportunity on concentration crafts and things like that. For me, when it gets to the point of where I'm at with my alt army, I just pick particular days in the week just to, you know, make it easier for myself. So right now, we know that it takes approximately 4 days for concentration to fully recharge, and because of that I can pick out specific days that I want to actually do my concentration crafting. Now right now that is going to be Wednesday and Saturdays, and you can tell that, you know, from Wednesday until Saturday that's only 3 days, but actually Saturday until Wednesday is closer to 4. And the reason why I want to do my crafting on Wednesday is because usually that's reset day. The only problem with doing that is if I don't have a lot of time, I will actually end up just spending almost the entire day or almost the entire prime time of the day just crafting. So you could also say that it's worth it to do it on Tuesdays instead, to have it ready to be sold Wednesday. And again, for the weekend, it doesn't really matter. It's just whenever you feel like you want to do it. But again, the reason why I mentioned this, it's not really important as to when you do it during the week. I would just say that if you log in every day and do your concentration crafts, you use, say that I'm waiting 4 days, right? You log in every day. You spend 4 times as much time, 4 times as much as what I would do on one day, right? That is what I would consider a problem, because you're using a lot of time on potentially not wasting any concentration or making sure that you get certain profit margins or whatever it is. I don't think that's necessarily worth it for me. And the only reason why I mentioned something like this is because time management is really important when you're doing an alt army, especially for concentration alt armies. And that's small things like that I'm thinking about when I'm doing my crafting. That is something that I would do. And again, that's why I put everything into my workbank. That's why I also have the toy, because think of it like this. I currently have the store boy, right? If I mount this up takes approximately 2 seconds. And then I have access to the mailbox. And then I can loot everything out of the mailbox. But the actual toy here is an instant cast, and I can click on it immediately. Now this, you might see, okay, well that's 2 seconds saved, who cares? Yeah, but in my case, I have 240 characters. If I do that 240 times, well then all of a sudden, that makes a difference. It's not a huge difference, right? It's only, you know, I don't know, like 10 minutes or something. But again, it's time that you don't have, like, it's small things like that that will make it a lot easier. But generally, I would say knowing what you want to craft, even if it's potentially a little less profit, will increase your gold power by quite a lot. And then also lowering or removing as many add-ons as you possibly can to increase the load speeds. That's super important. And again, if at all possible, have WoW on an SSD, because that will also lower the amount of time that you have to sit there and look at a loading screen. But again, I think that mostly covered everything. Like when you're crafting, again, make sure that you use Forge frameworks. And something that I also want to mention is that using these, I wouldn't really consider these worth it, at least for enchanting. Maybe in some of the other profession, but from my perspective here, the only time that I would ever use any of these, just because of how I craft, considering I wait either 3 or 4 days, I want to make sure that I use most of my concentration at all times. Because if I don't, I end up wasting quite a lot, right? And sometimes I could sit on a Wednesday where I've waited 4 days, and I could sit with like a 170 or 200 concentration, and I can't craft something because the alt is newer, or it's hasn't progressed as far. And if I use one of these, that can actually lower the concentration usage by quite a bit, which makes it take it closer to 0. So again, they're definitely not worth it to use every single time you craft something, but if it's to use the last bit of your concentration so you get a little bit more out of it, if you do crafting like me where you wait almost the full entire time it takes to recharge, I would say that that's worth it. But I think that's mostly everything. Also remember to get you know, tool enchants for your tools. And another thing, if you really want to min-max, eventually if you want to upgrade your profession accessories and also your profession tool, one thing that you could do is that you can make an alt or multiple alts that can actually craft the tools, because the upside of that is that you don't have to rely on other people, you don't have to pay particular tips that they want for the crafts, and then also every single time that you proc resourcefulness on one of these, you get to keep all the materials. The only downside to it is if you don't have very many alts, you will be basically wasting an entire alt being able to do that. So that's kind of up to you and what you want to do. I would say it's worth it if you're in the like 30 range of alts or above. I would say at that point it's probably worth it. And then obviously, again, remember to get your what do you call it, your enchants. Those are super important. And then again, try not to waste too much time just being randomly logged in, just because you have actives that you don't want to just randomly tick down so you can get more value out of it. But I think that's mostly everything that I have. If you guys have anything else that you want to add to this particular crafting rotation or min-maxing, make sure that you drop that down in the comments below. I kind of wanted to just yap a little bit to put you guys into a situation where you can kind of think about this in a way that puts you in a situation for where you can actually think of these things yourself. Hopefully that's what this video has done, but regardless, I do have one more thing. Now, on the last couple of videos here, we've actually given away some of these hate forged blaze cycles, and the answer to that is we're going to be doing it again. There is going to be a hate forged blaze cycle giveaway, so if you want to join this particular giveaway, make sure that you type, and we've done this in the other videos as well, make sure that you type "I want a bike" in the comments down below. Hopefully everyone gets to join. I know that we've had a lot of entries in the other ones as well. The winner that will be picked is going to be 1 week after this actual video goes out, and it will be posted in the pinned comments below. Now, the best chance for me to actually be able to reach out to you, because I can't on YouTube, is if you're already a part of the Discord. So make sure that you actually join the Discord as well, because then that way I have a chance of reaching out to you. If you do see your pinned in the pinned comment 7 days after, this particular video comes out. If you see your name there, make sure to reach out to me on Discord if I haven't found a way to reach out to you. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching the video. Make sure that you drop a like on the video if you haven't already. And again, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure that you do so you don't miss any future videos. Hopefully, we do get to see 11.1 really soon. I'm really excited to be able to do some content around it, some predictions, some pre-investments, and prep for that particular season. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and happy holidays. I'll see you in the next one.